There are speed cameras in the fields. There are even some in the pine trees, hidden behind a bush or concealed under a rabbit. There are speed cameras on the bridges and even on the slight inclines. In a bus or in a van, there are even some in the mountain pastures. Everything you need to know about speed cameras. You're going to learn all the error margins of these machines. At 80, you're a bandit. At 80, you're relaxed. Snap a photo. Hello, flashes. Did you see that?
Hello everyone, welcome to the Mecaniquesportive YouTube channel. This is Nicholas. Today we'll discuss speed cameras, their locations, error margins, the laws, costs, point penalties, and state revenue. I've prepared a comprehensive topic for you covering all these subjects. Let's start learning about all types of speed cameras, the penalties, costs, and what happens next. Let's go. And here in France, we have plenty of different types. And do you know what radar means? It's the shortened version of radio detection and ranging. In French, detection and estimation of distance by radio waves. We have the first radars, the fixed ones, so those are the ones installed on the road. Some flash from one side, others from both. There are turret types and smaller ones. We know these. We often see them along our roads. We'll come back to that later. Then we have the binocular speed cameras. Those are well known too. Police officers or gendarmes who set up at a spot with binoculars and will stop you directly. Next are mobile speed cameras, the ones that move. Sometimes you see those big boxes by the road. They can be relocated. They're battery-powered, send tickets directly, and are similar to fixed ones, but portable. Tower speed cameras are now taller and can usually detect more things in both directions. Recently, mobile speed cameras have also been introduced. Those are the cars that move along with you throughout your trip, and they can catch you from both behind and in front. Be careful. Carpool lane cameras are now increasingly common. You can see many of them around the Paris region and Ring Road, including those from the Olympic Games, and that's really where it became the most widespread. We have traffic light cameras, level crossing cameras, and now we also have noise cameras for motorcycles and cars that make too much noise. We have video ticketing as well. Those are officers in big cities who hide behind the thousands of cameras, for example in Paris, who can give you a ticket. Solid line, crosswalk, parking, etc. We'll talk about it again as well. There are radars that will start to appear. Radars that will be able to detect if you've used drugs or if you've consumed alcohol. Thanks to artificial intelligence, your face will be detectable. Be careful, that's coming too. So that's what we mainly have here. And there will be some changes. In the future, some will have many more features that can detect if you're wearing your seatbelt, if you don't have something in your hands, or if you're using your phone on board. Carpooling as well. If you overtake on the right, the safe distances between cars. In short, there will be a lot of things. And even turn signals will be detected directly through video. Yeah, okay. Along with my friends from lesvoitures.france, who also run lesradars.france, where they've mapped all the fixed speed cameras. You can also find that in the government's information, but they have gathered it all in one place. So when I'm on the Les Voitures website, I can have my map and I can zoom in directly to look for France right here. And you can see, wow, there are already a lot. And most of them are in the Paris region. Here you can see them directly, listed and categorized. I can zoom in and they show me their locations. For example, over here, there's actually one on National 7 at Ris-Orancas, heading towards Evry. I know that one well. Before, there was only one, but now it flashes both ways at 50 kilometers per hour. Anyway, you can see on this map the locations of all the fixed speed cameras, and you can see that there are quite a lot of them, and all over France, and the most are in the Paris region, actually, with 114 speed cameras positioned right here. We can zoom out and see cameras are everywhere in France, though some areas have fewer. For example, there aren't many between Nantes and Quimper, which is great. In Normandy, there are quite a few. Wow, look at Belgium. Oh, the number of speed cameras in Belgium as well. Pretty impressive. Well, I'll let you have fun directly with this map so you can find out about them, or the advantage of an app like Coyote, which will allow you to detect the zones in real time, every time. And that's also thanks to a community that reports them. Thanks to everyone who warns about danger zones. Since in the end, we're not allowed to talk about a zone, and to indicate the position of a radar that's mobile, for example. We're supposed to describe a danger zone except for zones, for example, that are declared by the government, which are supposed to be accident-prone areas. So it's for our safety if there are radars on the road. Of course, in this video, at no point am I encouraging you to exceed the speed limits. If there are signs like this, you absolutely have to follow them to the letter without exceeding the limit. If you accidentally exceed the limit, we'll discuss the margins of error to know whether or not you'll get a fine at home. So the first fixed speed cameras, there are several types. There are the gray ones with two boxes, one on top and one on the bottom. And sometimes when you see the little black cap on top, be careful with that one, because that one flashes in front and behind. Yes, because there are some that take from behind or from the front. It depends on how they're positioned. Well, at that point, when there's the little black thing on top, it's an additional camera that can detect you by your face, because a lot of people were contesting the photos taken from behind, since you weren't required to report who was in the car. And that's a law. The owner of the registration certificate receives the fine, but he isn't required to directly report who was driving. Except if it's a company, I think the company has to report its employee. Otherwise, it faces a pretty high fine. I think it's around 1,500 euros. Depending on your relationship with your boss, he may or may not pay for it. So either the small boxes, the little rectangular ones with the yellow and black stripes, or the slightly bigger ones, the gray ones, or now the towers with the big box up high. These ones are a bit more advanced. So, as I was saying, the ones with the little caps can catch you from the front. If you speed up behind them again, they'll catch you since they know you did. Also, yes, because bikers with a plate at the back. In front of these speed cameras, some could go fast and thought, anyway, we risk nothing. That's why they place those little hats with cameras facing back. So you get flashed from the front and confirmed from behind. Well, in that case, we'll know the biker was caught and that it's him. And this time there's his plate. So that's why the little hat. The ones that only take pictures from the front, for example, the little rectangular boxes, if you're a biker, you won't get flashed from the back. So the government realized that. They thought, well, maybe we should do something about that. Indeed, because a lot of motorcycles were getting away with it. Normally in France, for cars to be legal, you need to have a license plate on the front and a license plate on the back. And the plate has to meet the standards. And for it to be compliant. On the left, you absolutely must have the little F in the blue part, and on the right, you must have the department with a number. You can't write anything you want, or the plate won't be compliant. Doesn't it need the French flag on the left with the blue part? Well, that doesn't work. And if you don't have the little F on the left with the blue part, it doesn't work. Why? Because, for example, in Italy, they have the same license plates as we do. Same style, but it says I instead of F for them. To avoid confusion, we need that. Yes. According to the speed cameras, some are calibrated to work in only one direction, while others work in both directions. So there as well, depending on its position, be careful. Often, they're small 80km/h speed cameras placed on two-lane roads where there are two directions of traffic. There, most of the time, these speed cameras can flash in both directions. The more advanced they are, the farther they reach, sometimes catching multiple cars at once. The turret cameras are more advanced. It seems to me that the turret cameras, when everything is activated, when everything is fully developed, they can flash more than 130 cars at the same time. For example, on a 4-lane road, they can catch everything. And in the future, they'll be able to check safe distances, turn signals, phone use, passing on the right, plus speeding if you brake or accelerate again, and so on. They'll see everything, so be careful. Things will get complicated. To give you an idea, the towers flashed 6 million times in 2023. That's huge. There are 70 million people in France. By the way, while we're talking about numbers in Rennes, they issue 45,000 tickets a day. Yes, since everything is centralized in Rennes, there's a whole horde of employees who check the photos, flashes that are sent directly to the servers. They validate only if the license plate is visible and identifiable, otherwise they don't. The speed, and then they do it. They send all that to a police officer, so it's either a police officer or a gendarme who validates all that. They said each gendarme validated about 5,000 tickets a day. Those guys click really fast. Honestly, respect to you, gentlemen. Reviewing 5,000 images daily is a lot. So how much do the tickets bring in for the state each year? In 2023, the speed cameras, brought in 965 million euros for the state. That's huge, then that's reinvested. to do so accurately as shown here in multiple areas. 211 million to improve the road network and its safety. 187 million euros for road safety projects and local authorities. 340 million allocated to the proper functioning of automated control. That means inspections, maintenance, checks, and certifications. Repairing radars that have been destroyed, etc. And 26 million to improve the care of people injured on the road. That's pretty important. Ensuring automated controls like informed radars work properly. There has been a lot of damage to radars in France, especially during the Yellow Vests period. Thousands of radars were destroyed all over the place. There were many types of radars. Some were burned, some cut with a jigsaw or chainsaw, some knocked over, cars crashed into them, and more. It's completely illegal to damage a radar, to cover it, to damage it, to paint it, or anything like that. You risk serious prosecution. It can go up to a 100,000 euro fine and 7 years in prison, depending on what you did to a radar if you get caught. So I really advise you not to do it. And even if some people think it's just a trash bag, personally, I wouldn't mess with the state. It's better to respect the law. Then there are also mobile speed cameras. You know, those boxes that get moved to the sides. Back then, the state had invested quite a lot. A speed camera costs about 30,000 euros. That's quite a bit of money. It's paid for at the same time by all those flashes and so on. A speed camera pays for itself pretty quickly most of the time. Their goal is still to make it worthwhile, but at the same time, it's about protecting citizens and placing them in locations that are supposed to be safety zones. Those ones run on batteries, so that means there are agents who come from time to change the batteries. It's automatic, it sends the photos directly, etc. It's connected directly with Rennes to send you your ticket pretty quickly. And something pretty funny is that the guys have remote controls. To move them, they set them down with a trailer, and then there's a remote control. They play with it like a remote-controlled car to position it. That's pretty amusing. And those ones, be careful, same thing. Some flash in one direction, some in the other. Next are mobile speed cameras, cars that drive on the road alongside you. Yeah, and those ones are very hard to detect. There are some websites that list all those cars. Sometimes you see them, but it's very hard to tell which car is a speed camera. Some models have a small dashboard turret that's easy to spot, but seeing it often means you were already speeding. Many still flash after the car has passed, but be careful. The new cars no longer do this. They're cameras now, very well integrated and super discreet. Plus, they're lasers, they're infrared. There's not even a flash at all with this kind of car. And it can detect in front and behind. Everything is automatic now. It's sent straight to your home, same thing. A police officer in the car says they're in a 70 zone. He sets it to 70, and if you exceed that, you get flashed. However, there is a margin of tolerance here. As for the margins of tolerance, we'll talk about them again as soon as I've finished listing all the speed cameras. We have red light cameras, the ones that are often placed high up a few meters before a traffic light. Be careful about that. You should know that there are often strips on the ground, sensors right at that spot. When the car's wheels go over them, it can tell if the car has passed or not. There's one before the light and one after the stop line. Be careful. It's not the light that matters, it's the stop line. Be careful. If there are bike boxes there, watch out. Because if you go in and enter the bike box, it's like you ran the red light. That happened to a friend of mine. He still got the 135 euro fine and 6 points, if I'm not mistaken. Just for a red light. So those only detect if the wheels have passed. Even if it's just your front wheels. On the right sensor, too bad. However, these traffic cameras only flash on red. You can go through it yellow, but it scares me. Near my place in Villeneuve-Saint-Georges, I'm always nervous passing a traffic light camera. Next, the same applies to railroad crossings when the light flashes and barriers move. If you go through, it's a flashing traffic light camera, just like at railroad crossings. We have lights, often with both visual and sound signals. Well, same thing. You must not go through. We also have other cameras that have appeared not long ago. They're carpooling cameras. We see a lot of them around the ring road, around the outskirts of big cities. The other day, I saw one around Strasbourg. In the Paris region, there are several. And now, almost the entire ring road is equipped with carpooling cameras. So those are the cameras that detect the presence of at least 2 people in a car. There are disabled people who are allowed to use it. Or taxis, I think. Plus people who have at least 2 people inside. Stationary police officers use binoculars to spy on you. Often when they use binoculars, there's an interception further down since the machine doesn't complete the report. It's almost always interception, and that's true here too. There's always a little margin of tolerance. And often, with binoculars, they're a bit nicer than the fixed speed cameras. For instance, on the highway, they won't send a patrol if you're just 1 kilometer per hour over the limit. I have family in the police. Well, there you go. They're a bit nicer, and their goal is more about prevention, or really dealing with major speeding offenses in those situations. So you need to be aware. Often it's also announced on the right apps as a risk zone, because normally, if they're set up there, it's a risk zone. But there's a bit of apprehension, and it's not just about education. When the police use binoculars, it's kind of to hand out tickets. Then there are the cameras, which aren't really speed cameras, but they're placed pretty much everywhere now, and that's called video ticketing. These are officers who are, like me, behind a screen, except they have 12 huge screens. A little shout out to the one who will recognize herself, whom I know, who does this. So they have little joysticks with zoom and everything. They can zoom in on everything and see what you're doing. For example, I often take Ubers or taxis, and very often they stop in places where they're not allowed. And those people, since their goal is to make revenue because they work for private companies, it's not the government doing this, it's a private company. Well, their goal is to make as much money as possible, and they have daily targets to meet. If you only give out 1 fine a day, you'll quickly get fired. You're not profitable. And their goal is to bring in a lot of money so they can go to the minister and say, oh, look, we've made a lot of money. Or city halls, like Mrs. Hidalgo, likely pleased with the revenue, benefit whether you park or use a scooter. White line, running a red light, going through a red light, not using your turn signal. Pedestrian crossings, crosswalk. If you don't let a pedestrian pass, it's 6 points and a €135 fine. If he steps off the sidewalk and you block him, that's 6 points and a $135 fine in Paris. He's paying more attention now. Advice, slow down and let pedestrians pass. One-way streets and so on. There are cameras like that where you have a fixed camera that can also, well, for example, catch a one-way street violation. It happened to me in a parking lot I've been going to since I was a kid, where I would go in. There were 2 entrances, and they were used for both entering and exiting. I once hurried down a one-way street, lost 4 points, and got a €135 fine. It hurt because I've gone to that parking lot since I was a kid. You used to enter from both sides, but now it's just a camera and they don't care. Careful, because here I'm giving you the list of everything that video ticketing covers. So, not respecting signs, for example, stopping, a stop sign, a traffic light, not respecting the maximum speed limits. Some of them also detect by video, which is pretty impressive. Not respecting the safe distance between vehicles on the highway. They say you must respect the 2 lines. Not doing so isn't good. The use of lanes and roads reserved for certain categories of vehicles, like buses and taxis. There are many scooters in Paris, and everyone knows they cheat. Or even cars, bus lanes, taxi lanes, reserved lanes. Not wearing a seatbelt. There are some who can spot that now. We have the use of handheld phones. Yes, because for you to get a fine for using a phone, the vehicle has to be on a public road. While driving, the phone has to be held in your hand, and there must be proven use by the officer issuing the ticket. You need all 3 things to be fined for using the phone. Without them, the fine shouldn't apply, but you might still get one. But they have to be able to prove that you were using it, that you had it in your hand, and that your vehicle was running. If you use your phone while driving, using it as a global positioning system normally doesn't work. There are some officers who are a bit more lenient. There was also the thing about a fine at a toll booth. We didn't use our phone at a toll booth for the credit card. Well, yes, because in the end, if you're holding your phone in your hand and using it, the engine is running and you're on a public road. And using your phone, that's a bit weird. So really, use your credit card instead of your phone, because sometimes there are people who can take things really literally. Driving, stopping, or parking on the emergency lane. Yeah, if you start overtaking a little too early for an exit emergency lane, that's not good. Crossing or straddling solid lines, as I mentioned, or not following overtaking rules, such as overtaking on the right. Boom! A ticket gets sent to your home. Not respecting bike boxes works the same way with red light cameras and video enforcement. There's no red light camera, but a small, well-placed camera that says, oh, he's in the bike box. Small fine, just like for a red light. And not wearing a helmet, for example, on 2-wheelers. And actually, there are plenty of other things they can do, like parking in the city, etc. Anyway, be careful. And do you hear it coming, this one? No? Now, there's a noise radar that's starting to show up. If you make too much noise with your car or motorcycle, modified exhaust pipe, you get a fine. Now, there are cameras with sound level meters that are fixed and can precisely detect which vehicle is making noise. That also means a fine. Yes, I also forgot about some friends who got caught. Video fines, missing license plate, the plate. They only had the number without the little F on the side or the things on the right. So there you go. They say, well, no, it's fine. The number's fine. Everything is fine. The signage, the writing, etc. Well, no, it's not fine. Because they didn't have the little blue thing and the thing on the right. It's a regulation that requires that. Except for vintage cars. If you have your vehicle registered with the Federation of Vintage Vehicles, at that point, you're allowed to have a black plate. That's the only condition. Otherwise, you need a regular plate like everyone else. The police, if it's not the right one, it's not good. If you don't have the things on the sides, it's not good. If you change the color, it's not good. In short, it's regulated. So, with all that, do the speed cameras flash a lot or not? Yes, they flash a lot. To make almost €1 billion in revenue, that's still huge. I think that's only what's actually paid, not just sent. Imagine all the people who don't pay. Advice, just pay. Next, we'll discuss fines and point deductions. And what you need to know is that 93% of speed camera flashes in France are for speeding less than 20 kilometers per hour over the limit. So it's always minor speeding offenses where you often lose 1 point and pay a small fine. Yeah, it's rarely major speeding offenses, but there are a few. Only 7%, but 7% of thousands or hundreds of thousands adds up to a lot of speeding offenses. Over 20 kilometers per hour, the real radar error margins. For example, for a speed limit of 50 kilometers per hour. If the radar reads 56 kilometers per hour, then your recorded speed will be 53 kilometers per hour. Small fine. On the other hand, if you had gone at 53, it would have recorded 50. So you would have been fine. And on the road safety website, there's also a table here that will directly show us whether there are fines or not. So here we have an example. If a speed of 97 kilometers per hour is recorded, the retained speed is 92 kilometers per hour. We reduce the radar speed by 5 kilometers per hour. If the speed limit is 50 and we drive 55, we're fine. We have a speeding violation if we go over 56 kilometers per hour, so 56, because it will drop to 51 kilometers per hour. That's how it is up to 100 km/h with a 5 km/h margin. Most cars, when you drive at 130, are actually between 127 and 129. They're never exactly at 130. That's exactly to play with this fine margin of error as well. Above 100 kilometers per hour, it switches to a percentage. 5% error. So if the speed limit is 110 kilometers per hour to get flashed, I would have to go up to 116. If I go up to 115, I'm still good. It rises as speed increases. Suppose the limit is 130. The radar only flashes if I'm at 137, a 6.5 km/h difference. That's the small margin, the tolerance percentage. You can find it on the Les Voitures website. Green means no fine. Red means you get a fine. However, for mobile cars, it's pretty much the same philosophy. We have a 10% margin of error because our mobile vehicle can accelerate and brake, making it different. So we now have a 10% margin instead of 5 kilometers per hour or 5%. For example, if a road is limited to 130, you must exceed 140 to get flashed. At 141 km/h, you'll be flashed for going 131. That makes the difference, giving more margin for error so you can go over. They did that too, because if the car is, for example, at 130, don't overtake recklessly, you can overtake at 140. 10 kilometers per hour, that allows you to overtake normally on the highway or on the main road in a sufficient way, and that will more than do the job. It's 13 kilometers per hour on the highway, since 10% of 130 is 13. And the mobile cars, in most cases, are sedans. You even find some 308s. You also find small city cars, sometimes 208s. That kind of car, or Fords, you should know that these are private companies that hire staff. By the way, sometimes there are job offers. So, if you're interested in going around catching people all day, don't hesitate to apply. It's just a job. You're not catching people, it's the car doing it. Honestly, it's similar to being an inspector or a police officer. Anyway, would you enjoy catching people all day long? Yes, it's a job. Les Voitures' website has several listed. There are 75, C5 Aircross, 40 Peugeot, 30835, 35-seat, Leon 30, Volkswagen Passat, 30 Ford Mondeo, 1212 Skoda Octavia, 1010 Ford Focus 7 Golf, and 5508. At the time this article was written, There were that many. You should know that more will appear on the roads, especially in summer. The government also checks and inspects its radars frequently. It used to be hard, especially with the binoculars. So many fines got canceled. Now it's getting more complicated. I had several lawyers online get those canceled. Also, some radars are only calibrated to certain speeds. Some can't flash above 250 km/h. Others, 300 km/h. It's already happened. A friend. I don't recommend doing it. For example, if you drive over 300 kilometers per hour, the speed camera flashes. Or the police with binoculars catch you farther down the road still at a distance. They say, "But sir, you were driving at 327 km/h there." And the man says, "Yes, so what? But you're completely crazy, so we're going to seize your car, this and that, court, etc." And so they ask for the radar calibration. Well, it wasn't good since it wasn't up to standard. The radar couldn't measure a speed above 300 kilometers per hour. Even if it could display it, well, it's not certified for that. So it was invalid. And even at the time, the dates were limited. There are specific dates. For example, if verification is required before November 11th, 2025, and you get flashed on November 12th, the radar isn't valid or certified anymore. So you got lucky that day. But usually it's your lawyer who takes care of that, not you. It's rare for you to ask the police officers for the radar's verification date. You might still be able to do it anyway. There's also another way to issue a ticket now. Yeah, there could be a police officer like that on the side of the road, drinking a coffee. He says, "Oh, that car is going fast," and that's the iRadar. That's called a drive-by ticket. He can issue a ticket for excessive speed, resulting in a €90 fine but no points lost, since he can't measure your speed. If you go over 300, it's just excessive speed. You might also make too much noise with your car by revving too high or accelerating hard. Well, that's driving that's not suited to the situation. You can get fined for things like street racing, so be careful even if you leave. From 0 to a traffic light, heavy acceleration up to 50, you can get a fine. Be careful about that as well. What else? Leaving the toll booth, unless you've seen the 130's sign, be careful. It's a 70 zone. Yes, we often have fun with big cars. Depending on the area, when you slow down at the toll booth, you'll see signs for 130, 110, 90, and 70. After the 30 zone for electronic tolls, what's the speed limit? Until you see the 130 sign again. The law says it's not 130 until you see the 130 sign again. But the earlier sign is what matters. Be careful. Some police officers sometimes joke about this. And then, if you make noise with a modified exhaust and all that, watch out, even though it's true that it's always a little pleasure. They don't always do it because of the crowd. It's an acceleration zone to reach 130 kilometers per hour. But normally, we're not supposed to accelerate like crazy, even though we know very well that a lot of people do it. And it's actually good for the engine to be able to clean itself out a little at that moment, and that's when pollution goes up. You need to have a good old diesel, and you can see during the installation check that they look at the antenna's positioning to within half a degree. So it's still a job that requires precision. And you can't mess around with these instruments, which are measuring devices. It's like a ruler. A millimeter is always a millimeter, and you never have a ruler that measures something else entirely. Now, we're getting to the penalties, so regarding fines and classes, we're going to see 3rd class, 4th class, and 5th class fines, which can become an offense depending on the speed at which you're driving. A 3rd class fine is most common for speeding under 20 kilometers per hour, with the law also covering cases under 5 kilometers per hour. Now, you no longer lose that 1 point, and that's a very good thing because I have to admit that was a shame. So thank you for passing laws like this to avoid losing points, because you can also take point recovery courses to get them back. So between 5 kilometers per hour over and 20 kilometers per hour over, you lose 1 point and the fine is 68 euros. If you pay in advance, the fine is 45 euros. If you pay late, it's 180 euros. An increase, and if you don't pay at all, well, it can go up to 450 euros. Be careful, however, if you're in the city. This rule changes if the speed limit is below 50 kilometers per hour or 50 kilometers per hour maximum. It moves to category 4 fine. You still lose 1 point, but this time the fine goes up to 135 euros. 90 euros if you pay it early, 375 euros if it gets increased. And it goes up to 750 euros if you don't pay it. This time, if you're between 20 and 30 kilometers per hour over the speed limit, you'll get a Category 4 fine, a €135 fine. If you pay within 15 days, it's €90. If increased, it's €375. You don't owe €750 yet, and it's 2 points on your license. Next, let's go a little faster. I still advise you not to do it between 30 and 40 kilometers per hour over the limit. It's still a fourth-class fine, the same rates, except this time you lose 3 points, €135 or 90 if paid quickly, 375 or €750 if late. However, under certain conditions, you can have your license suspended for up to 3 years. And sometimes a driving ban for up to 3 years as well, yeah. And also for some people, you'll have to take a road safety course, especially if you just got your license, I think. There are a lot of new rules for new drivers. I might make a video if you're interested. This time, we're discussing being 40-50 km/h over the speed limit. The fine is reasonable, €135.90 or €365 if paid late. Here, it can reach €750. But you can also end up with a license suspension depending on the circumstances. Road safety courses and all that, depending on your situation as well. Unfortunately, that's not up to you. Exceeding the limit by over 50 kilometers per hour is when it becomes very serious. Careful, there's a difference between 50 and 51. License suspension for up to 3 years, that's 6 points at once. Immediately. If you lose your probationary license, you must start over and retake the test. All of that, you start over from scratch right away. Road safety course. Your vehicle can be confiscated if you exceed the speed limit by over 50 kilometers per hour. Even people with nice cars and good lawyers aren't always exempt. The car, bye-bye. So I don't think that's fair at all because you're poor. Like me, I'm poor. I have a Twingo I got cheap. And before that, a Saxo worth €400. I drive 50 kilometers over the speed limit. I lose 6 points, my license, and the state says they'll confiscate the vehicle. €400 is not a big deal. Nicholas, I'm a YouTuber. I've made it in life. I'm not JMK, unfortunately. I make €600,000 a month, like JMK by Bugattis, and anything I want. Boom, 50 kilometers over the limit. Hello, sir. Thank you. Confiscating the keys. Imagine giving you a €2 million car. I don't like that. It could become state public domain. Not sure if you noticed. Now there are police officers driving around all over France. In G63, AMG and RS, 6 and C63, AMG and big German sedans and whatever you want. These are seized cars, yeah, either by the police in drug cases, etc., criminal cases and so on. Or for serious speeding, yes. They're also allowed to drive your cars. And then, often, well, they use it. And when it's time for maintenance, they put it up for auction in the public domain. And sometimes you can get a good deal there. But be careful, the police are allowed to drive fast with the sirens and everything. I'm not sure they take very, very good care of the cars. Even though I'd really like to make a video one day about the people who maintain the cars, specifically for the gendarmerie, the police, and so on, because there are knowledgeable people and mechanics. You need to be sharp since risking the lives of those who protect us is dangerous. Repeating an offense over 50 kilometers per hour is really bad. There, it can go up to 3 months in prison, a €3,750 fine, confiscation of the vehicle, a points recovery course, and a road safety course. Some people can't take the driving test for 5 years, making it more complicated. I don't recommend it. So what you need to remember from this video, I advise you to have either an assistant who will give you the safety zones where you really need to be more careful and vigilant. That's an added benefit for your daily driving, and it also helps you respect speed limits. All cars now are also equipped with overspeed alerts, and that matters. We often try to disable them. In France, it's tough with 30 and 50 zone speed bumps and such, so you must be very cautious. So I always recommend that you respect the speed limits shown on the signs you see. In any case, at no time can you speed. It's illegal, and you'll get fined. So I absolutely can't recommend it. Every time we do tests, we respect the speed limits, and we do them on closed roads when we have tests to carry out. The brands, for example, during events where we try out powerful cars and so on, close roads for us. It's happened to me several times, for example, that we privatize the Tourigny Pass to test cars with certain brands, or other roads that we can privatize. That's possible. You can even do it yourself by requesting the prefect, among other options. There are many film shoots, like television channels and more. These are road privatizations that allow you, at that point, under controlled conditions, to be able to do it. Or when I was escorted by the Republican Guard, which is Emmanuel Macron's escort, who allows us to drive a little faster since we're being escorted with the flashing lights, the sirens, and so on, by the Republican Guard or the police, etc. Only under those conditions can you allow yourself to drive above the speed limit, but in no other case can you do whatever you want. It's like ambulances, etc. They don't have the right to do whatever they want. Flashing lights and a two-tone siren are specific conditions. Also remember, ambulances are mostly just taxis and only get priority for certain tasks. Yeah, but for firefighters, you have to get out of the way. For police and SAMU, you must move aside. But with ambulances, cooperate since we don't know the situation. But they're not as high priority as those with the right plates, like the gendarmerie and the army. The Groupe d'Intervention de la Gendarmerie Nationale. Watch out for the Groupe d'Intervention de la Gendarmerie Nationale. The other day, I saw the Groupe d'Intervention de la Gendarmerie Nationale go by with armored vehicles. Those guys, you get out of the way right away for the Groupe d'Intervention de la Gendarmerie Nationale. We know it's not going to be a joke, or else it's for something really, really serious. Just a little thing, a little rant. It's just that I find there are a lot of cars now, with sirens and so on, that go by pretty often. Well, we don't know what they're doing, but there you go. It would also be nice if we had fewer traffic jams and smoother cities. Or if all those people were on two-wheelers, it would be easier. It's just, little ideas. I'm just throwing them out there. But anyway, respect to everyone who handles ticketing, the police, and so on. As I told you, I have family members who work in the police, and I even had a brother-in-law who was a commissioner. It's not an easy job. The government imposes certain things. And unfortunately, those who have to give out fines, sometimes for small speeding offenses. Well, yes, but the law is the law. We're not supposed to compromise. And let me tell you, in France, we're really, really lucky. Our fines are actually not expensive at all. In Norway, speeding fines can reach 1,800 euros. In Switzerland, they're based on your income. In Dubai, running a red light can cost up to 10,000 euros in fines. So just remember that in France, they're actually very lenient with really low fines. That's it. The only advice I have for you is to follow the rules and respect the speed limits. Now you know the margins of error. In case you say, oh, I went a little over, now you know at what speed you'll get flashed or not. Be aware there's a slight difference between your speedometer reading and your real speed. And on top of that, there's this margin of error with the speed cameras, either 5 kilometers per hour or 5% depending on your speed. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe. See you soon for more videos on car, motorcycle, scooter, and bike tests, as well as similar content. If you liked it, all right, see you soon. Bye.